What is going on, guys? It is Zombie Wars, and welcome back again to another video. And today we're going to be talking about which FNAF survivor is going to be coming into Dead by Daylight. So before we get to this, leave a like on today's video and leave a comment in the comments section down below who you think is going to be coming in the Five Nights at Freddy's chapter. A lot of people say that FNAF does not have a lot of human characters, but I don't think that's really quite the case. I will say there are a lot of characters I don't think would fit Dead by Daylight in particular, but there are a lot of human characters to choose from in the series. There is one caveat though, and that's most of these characters are from the books, and in this video I will be focusing solely on the games and the movie. The reasoning behind this is because in the books, a lot of these characters are one-off characters or characters that don't have a lot of relevancy to the whole FNAF lore. I feel like for this chapter, it's mostly going to be the big name characters. So we're going to start this video off by focusing on the primary suspects for the survivor, and that's Michael Afton and Vanessa, both of these characters from the game. I do not think it's going to be Michael Afton or Vanessa from the movie, or I guess the movie Michael is Mike Smith, but I don't think it's going to be either of the movie characters. And the reason why I say this is because during an interview with the devs of Dead by Daylight, they addressed the licensor of FNAF as a singular person, that being, of course, Scott.
There's a lot to do in FNAF, but it's gonna be cool.
Like, we've been waiting for this chapter to happen for such a long time. We really want to do it justice. So we've been listening to all these small details, just trying to talk with the licensor how we can make every single detail perfect and true to the whole franchise, and it's gonna be awesome.
So it's a safe bet to assume that whatever characters are going to be coming into the game are going to be from the video game series and not from the movie at all. That being said, it is always a possibility that Mike Smith and Vanessa from the movie could be legendary skins down the road, but as it stands, I think Michael Afton and Vanessa from Security Breach have the most likelihood chance of being a survivor. I think these are the ones that people theorize the most about, mostly because they're the most blatantly obvious ones, that being the two primary adult characters in the series. I think if they had to choose one of them, they would definitely choose Michael Afton, but if they're doing a two survivor chapter like they usually do for big licenses like FNAF, they did this with Stranger Things and both of the Resident Evil chapters. They also did this with Tools of Torment, but that was an original chapter, so that doesn't really count. But if we're getting two survivors, I think Vanessa would definitely be the second survivor. But if it's just one, I think it's going to be Michael Afton. I can't really think of many perks off the top of my head because I'm not very good at coming up with perks, but I feel like Michael Afton is also very easy to base perks around, mostly because of his theming. He's a very resilient character that faces a lot of stress, so I feel like his perks would definitely be something that's based on him being injured or focusing on several different tasks at once. I can't really think of too many perk ideas for someone like Vanessa. But anyways, I do want to talk about a third survivor that I feel like many people don't talk about, and that's Henry Emily being a survivor in the chapter. I think he's very likely to be a survivor, at least as a legendary skin. The reason why I say this is because he is a very important piece of the FNAF lore, and he has a direct connection with William Afton, just like Michael Afton does. I also feel like if Henry Emily was added as a survivor, his perk should definitely focus around repairing generators, considering he builds robotics. I think Michael Afton would be the most fitting survivor if they had to choose one, but I would really put Henry Emily in second place over Vanessa, just because I feel like the fact that Henry and William are such at odds with each other, it would just fit so well. I think it would be a massive disappointment if Henry doesn't come in the Dead by Daylight in some way or form, if it's not even a legendary skin. But I feel like those are the three safest options when it comes to survivors in Dead by Daylight, but I wanted to throw in some original ideas as well that I don't see many people bring up. Maybe for a good reason. So let's move on to some of the wackier ideas, and the first one is probably the wackiest of them all, and that is Gregory. I know what you're thinking, well, they can't have a child be in Dead by Daylight, and you're right, there can't be a child survivor in Dead by Daylight. However, this hasn't been the first time a license has had a child character come into the realm. In the Ringu chapter in Dead by Daylight, we have the survivor Yoichi, in the source material, Yoichi was a child, but in Dead by Daylight, it takes a version of him that is from the future. Dead by Daylight actually expands upon the lore of Ringu and adds a new story to Yoichi that has never been seen before until Dead by Daylight. So what I'm saying here is that Dead by Daylight and FNAF can do something similar. They can expand upon the lore of Gregory, a character that I don't know if we're ever going to get back to again, and expand upon his lore in the realm by having him be an adult later on in the timeline. There is a major caveat to this, and that's, as much as it's unlikely, I also think even if it were to happen, it probably wouldn't be with this chapter. I feel like FNAF is a license that's going to be so big that behavior is going to be crazy to not do a part 2 chapter of in the future. And if they do a part 2 chapter, I feel like it's going to focus on the Steel Wool era of FNAF games. And the only characters I see fitting that are Gregory and Vanessa. So I just want to throw out this wild idea just because I think it's so crazy, but I also think it's really interesting at the same time because it has happened before in Dead by Daylight. Also, I think it'd be really funny to get looped by Gregory. Alright, moving on from that, I do have 2 more ideas. They're still kind of out there, but they're more grounded and more realistic. The first one being Jeremy Fitzgerald from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Jeremy Fitzgerald is a character that we don't really know much about. He's only really relevant in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I also believe he gets some lore in the guidebook, but not really a lot. He's just kind of a character that we just haven't really had much to go off of. So I think Jeremy would be a really cool survivor to see in the realm. I do think that he would have to be a legendary skin. I don't think there's any universe where Jeremy would be a full-on survivor, but seeing Jeremy as a legendary skin would be really cool. I think this chapter is a good opportunity for Scott Cawthon to really put a face to a lot of his characters that we have not really seen before. Of course, we got to see Mike Schmidt in the FNAF movie, but that's a completely different Michael than the ones that's in the games. Now, I'm assuming the characters that are coming into Dead by Daylight are going to be the same exact characters that we play as and against in the games. Alright, now the last one is definitely a personal pick of mine, and that's Phone Dude as the original legendary skin. Now, the reason I chose Phone Dude over Phone Guy is because we don't really know what happens to Phone Dude. We know that Phone Guy eventually gets attacked by all the animatronics, but when it comes to Phone Dude, he just kind of disappears. In Five Nights at Freddy's 3, he's the one that brings Springtrap to us. And then after he hangs up the phone call, he just kind of vanishes. It's implied that he either just wasn't needed anymore, or Springtrap got to him. However, what I think would be a lot cooler is if in the lore, they explained his disappearance by being taken by the entity. I know, this one's a little out there and kind of stupid, but I've always really liked Phone Dude. I thought he was a really funny character. So it'd be really cool to play as Phone Dude in Dead by Daylight. But yeah, that's really it. Those are just some of the survivors I think that can come into Dead by Daylight. Of course, I can't cover every single possibility, so leave a comment down below some of your ideas. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Peace.